Today is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. The time is 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to Geopolitical Updates from AGI Era. In the northern Mexican state of Sinaloa, the city of Culiacán has been dramatically transformed into a battleground, a stark emblem of an escalating drug cartel feud. Reports from the BBC depict a city under siege where rival factions of the notorious Sinaloa cartel are locked in a ruthless struggle for territorial control. The pervasive atmosphere of fear is palpable as residents navigate streets where armed convoys are a common sight, and the sound of gunfire has become an unsettling daily reality. This surge in violence, which follows the recent death of cartel leader Mencho, has plunged the region into profound instability, with profound implications for both local populations and regional security. The clashes extend beyond Culiacán itself, impacting other areas and highlighting the enduring, brutal power struggles within Mexico's criminal underworld. This intense conflict isn't merely a localized eruption. It signals a critical pivot point in the long-running war between criminal organizations and the state, and casts a long shadow over stability in a nation grappling with persistent insecurity. We'll delve deeper into the strategic implications of this Mexican conflict in our Deep Analysis segment. Turning our attention to the global stage, U.S. President Trump continues to keep international allies and adversaries in suspense regarding his administration's future strategy on Iran. Following his State of the Union address, the president has remained intentionally ambiguous on specific policy shifts, particularly concerning the nuclear agreement. The forthcoming round of discussions between the U.S. and Iran, scheduled for Thursday in Geneva, is being watched with intense scrutiny as it's anticipated to be a pivotal moment influencing the president's ultimate decision-making. This diplomatic tightrope walk underscores the delicate balance of power in the Middle East and the potential for any misstep to trigger significant regional repercussions. In a separate development, Japan has announced ambitious plans to deploy advanced missile systems on Yonaguni Island, its westernmost territory, situated perilously close to self-governing Taiwan, by 2031. This strategic military enhancement is a direct response to the escalating tensions between Taiwan and mainland China. Yonaguni, already hosting a Japan ground self-defense force base, will become a forward operating base for these new missile capabilities. The move signals Tokyo's deepening commitment to regional security and its increasing concern over Beijing's assertive posture in the Indo-Pacific, potentially reshaping the military calculus across the East China Sea. Moving south to Africa, Sudan's protracted conflict has intensified with extensive drone strikes now targeting the Kordofan region, a critical area rich in gold and oil resources. These aerial assaults represent a pivotal new front line in the nation's ongoing internal struggle, leading to widespread casualties and further displacement of civilian populations. The persistent violence in Kordofan highlights the deep-seated nature of the conflict and the continued elusive search for a lasting peace. Control over these valuable natural resources is a key driver of the conflict, with both warring factions vying for economic leverage and strategic advantage. Across the continent, Zimbabwe has officially rejected a health aid agreement proposed by the U.S., citing concerns over the perceived lopsided nature of the deal, particularly regarding data sharing. Harare's government has expressed significant reservations about provisions that would grant the U.S. access to Zimbabwean biological samples without a reciprocal agreement for sharing research benefits. This decision reflects a broader trend among some developing nations to assert greater control over their sovereign data and resources, even when faced with pressing humanitarian aid offers, signaling a nuanced shift in North-South development partnerships. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Merz, during his inaugural visit to Beijing, delivered a pointed warning regarding the persistent trade imbalance between Germany and China. In discussions with Chinese counterparts, the Chancellor underscored the necessity for fair competition and a level playing field for German enterprises operating within the Chinese market. His remarks reflect growing European concerns about China's industrial policies and intellectual property practices, highlighting the complex economic interdependence and simmering trade disputes that characterize contemporary Sino-European relations. And finally, Cuban authorities have reported that 4 individuals were shot dead aboard a U.S.-registered speedboat by Cuban border guards. The incident occurred as the vessel was allegedly attempting to enter Cuban waters illegally. Details surrounding the identities of those on board, including 6 others who were reportedly wounded, remain unconfirmed. This event underscores the persistent migratory and security challenges in the Straits of Florida and the heightened vigilance of Cuban coastal defenses, often leading to tragic outcomes. Our deep analysis today focuses on the alarming and rapidly deteriorating security situation in Mexico, specifically the city of Culiacán in Sinaloa, which has been engulfed in a brutal internecine conflict between rival factions of the powerful Sinaloa cartel. This isn't merely a continuation of historical drug-related violence. Rather, it represents a significant escalation, transforming urban centers into de facto war zones. The current surge in hostilities is a direct consequence of the power vacuum and subsequent infighting ignited by the confirmed death of cartel leader El Mencho. His demise has fractured established criminal hierarchies, prompting ambitious lieutenants and rival organizations to vie for control over lucrative trafficking routes, production facilities, and extortion networks. The so what of this intense cartel warfare is multifaceted and profound. Economically, the instability directly impacts legitimate businesses, forcing closures, disrupting supply chains, and driving away investment. Local economies, already vulnerable, suffer immensely from widespread extortion, kidnapping, and the forced recruitment of young people into cartel ranks. The cost to the Mexican state is astronomical, both in terms of increased security spending and the profound loss of economic productivity. Furthermore, the conflict's geographical spread means that key agricultural and industrial zones are increasingly vulnerable to disruption, potentially impacting commodity prices and regional trade flows. Strategically, this internal conflict within one of the world's most powerful criminal organizations presents a critical challenge for the Mexican government. The deployment of federal forces, while necessary, often results in protracted engagements with heavily armed and tactically sophisticated cartel elements, further straining the state's resources and legitimacy. The government faces a difficult choice. A direct, aggressive confrontation risks further civilian casualties and societal destabilization, while a more passive approach cedes de facto control to criminal enterprises. This dynamic effectively weakens the state's monopoly on force, a foundational principle of national sovereignty. Internationally, the instability in Mexico has far-reaching consequences. Increased border security concerns for the U.S., alongside the potential for refugee flows and amplified illicit drug shipments, are immediate worries. The strategic impact on regional stability is also considerable, as neighboring Central American nations, already contending with their own gang violence and governance challenges, could see spillover effects. Moreover, the evolving tactics and armaments of these cartels, including their demonstrated capacity to challenge state authority, represent a worrying trend for national security agencies across the hemisphere. The long-term strategic consequence is a potential shift in the balance of power within Mexico, where non-state actors increasingly exert territorial control and influence governance, posing a fundamental threat to democratic institutions and the rule of law. The sheer scale of violence and the sophistication of cartel operations indicate a deeply entrenched problem that requires more than tactical responses. It necessitates a comprehensive, multi-layered strategy addressing socioeconomic disparities, judicial reform, and international cooperation. To summarize, the world watched today as Mexico's cartel violence intensified. President Trump kept the world guessing on Iran, and Japan signaled a significant military buildup near Taiwan. Looking ahead, our watch list for the next 24 hours includes monitoring the Geneva talks between the U.S. and Iran for any explicit policy statements from Washington. Additionally, we'll be closely observing any further deployments or official statements from Japan regarding its missile strategy on Yonaguni, as these will indicate the immediate trajectory of East Asian security.